South Sudan, Africa. Miles off the beaten track lies the village of Loronyo. Here, in 1921, a boy is born who one day will become a priest, a martyr and a hero. His name is Saturnino Ohure. Through his life and untimely death, he became a symbol of South Sudan's fight for independence. For his Christian brethren, his life reflects a struggle for dignity and peace in the face of injustice and violence. Life in Loronyo village was simple but rich in meaning. The lessons learned under the thatched roofs of the community huts gave young Saturnino a solid foundation for the future.
So far as Saturnino Suale grew in a village, knowing very well that there are the norms that he has to follow. In the Lotuho setting, any child born in a community is the property of the village. He does well, is appreciated by all. He does wrong, is corrected by all.
Young Saturnino was baptized at the age of 10. The teachings he learned through catechism harmonized with much of what the boy already knew from tradition.
There is a God, the Lotuho called Ajok. There is a mysterious being who created all of us among the Lotuho. They believe it. So when the Christian values came in, there was nothing contradictory to the belief in one God. These values that the people here in Loronyo has stuck in the brain and heart of this young man. Anything that was contrary to the setting and the traditions of the South, Father Saturnino rejected completely.
Young Saturnino liked to read. He was a good student who excelled at school, finishing his primary studies several years ahead of his peers. His natural inquisitiveness became his compass towards the truth.
In his own life as a student, Suale he read about slavery and slave trade. And when he grew up, slave trade was still going on in a different way. Not anymore maybe taking a human being and sell out, but the operation. Somebody sitting on the head of somebody and said, you, in order to be like me, you must be a Muslim.
Saturnino entered the seminary soon after completing his primary studies. Encouraged by the good work of the Comboni missionaries, he sought to protect the dignity of his community from the continued neglect and oppression it faced from the government.
And this he repeated many times, I had to become a pastor in order to lead my people to the heavenly destiny, not the political destiny, to the heavenly destiny. We are all created for heaven. And the Lord does not want anybody to be lost.
Father Saturnino was ordained a priest in 1946 at the age of 25. He immersed himself in parish life, directing the parish school, organizing musical activities, and working in the garden. He was gifted in languages and could converse freely in several local dialects, required when visiting distant parishes. People admired him, and he in turn liked to see his people grow in the faith.
His priestly identity was so clear, not only in terms of celebrating the sacraments, but his commitment to the people that he served. He could be a model for any priest, even more so for those of us who have less serious challenges to face. Because when you see what this man faced and persevered through, and then you compare it with yourself, you have to say, oh, I think I can do this. If he could do that, I ought to be able to do this.
Sudan gained independence from the British Crown in 1956. The newly established state offered hope for the neglected people of the South to finally better their life. In 1958, with special permission from the Holy See, Father Saturnino campaigned and was elected to represent the southern region of Torit in the new formed Khartoum Parliament. The constitution was to be drafted. His goal was to seal into law civil and religious freedoms for his people.
When people see that there's chaos all around, the people are not helped, people are being cheated, people are being oppressed, and if you could be a voice for the people in the parliament. So the Vatican decided to say this man had to be released. So he was released to be in parliament, in Khartoum. But being there, he found out that what he went for, he could not achieve. Everything was just made difficult for him.
The South's desire for greater autonomy from the Muslim North was evident. Seeing how the Southerners held their ground in constitutional discourse, the military government dissolved the parliament soon after its inception. Father Saturnino returned to his Yei mission. The post of bishop in the newly formed vicariate of Juba was offered to him, though after much deliberation he turned down the proposition.
He was one of those who was suggested to be a bishop, and he said, I didn't like to be a bishop of slaves, because the South was considered completely a place for slavery and all the oppression and so on. He refused, he preferred to go and work with the people.
His dream of working with his people soon proved impossible. On receiving word that he was a target in the eyes of the Khartoum government, he fled to Uganda, never to return to Sudan again. Father Saturnino Ohure now embarked on the final and most difficult mission of his life, a leader and spiritual guide to South Sudan's resistance against the North's Islamization and violence.
Father was a lighter, somebody who wanted to touch the heart of everyone, women and men, children and old. He wanted to see that you people know their rights. He said, we as Christians, if we keep quiet, that means we will make our Christians who are being persecuted to think we don't care about them. This is his own preaching in Europe. If we don't talk about the problem in Southern Sudan, who are mainly Christians, the Christians there will say, the Christian world doesn't speak about us.
Father Saturnino traveled extensively throughout neighboring African countries and Europe, passionately campaigning for Southern Sudan, alerting the world to the plight of his people who were suffering at the hands of Khartoum's dictatorial Islamic regime. He also ministered to the growing number of Sudanese refugees fleeing persecution.
One time he came to us, he found us celebrating the independence of Uganda, 1962. And we were wearing the flag of Uganda pinned to our chest here. And he was talking to us about how the freedom fighters are doing. Then he was saying to us, are you happy to celebrate independence in this way? Why are you celebrating the independence of other people, of other countries? One day you will celebrate independence of the Southern Sudan in the way you are celebrating the independence of Uganda. We are all dumbfounded.
With the civil war now raging in Sudan, Father Saturnino retreated further into hiding. His pleas for help abroad were mostly ignored, as the fighting was considered Sudan's internal affair. Only when the fate of his beloved village was at risk from approaching troops did he set out to warn the refugees. It was then, in January of 1967, that Father Saturnino was taken prisoner.
When he died, he was with two other men, and they were being marched to a particular camp. He recognized that they were going to be executed. So he said to his two companions, we have to do something. He jumped at one of the soldiers. The two other men escaped, and he was the one who ended up dying. So even in the last act of his life, there was a laying down of his life for others.
After Father Saturnino's death, southern Sudan continued to suffer the blows of war. Millions died or were displaced in a conflict that lasted nearly 50 years. It was not until 2008 that Father Saturnino's body was returned and finally laid to rest in his homeland.
So we were celebrating, we were not weeping. We had a solemn mass, a memorial mass, which the Archbishop said is not a funeral mass, it's not a requiem mass, but a celebration, a festive. We are celebrating the good work the Lord has done through the hands of this lying man.
We started arranging with the Archbishop Odama of Uganda. Two cases were very obvious. The cross with a thread chain, it is not iron chain, remain intact until today. The trouser that has been for 40-something years is not eaten by white ant. It's still as it is. You can wash and wear. The place after the Archbishop went back from here to go and check where he was killed. The traces of dark blood is still until here, 42 years. Archbishop Odama told me that they have a lot of evidence that we could make a process of this canonization and sainthood to this man.
Peace has finally returned to South Sudan, and as Father Saturnino provided inspiration and hope throughout the years of struggle, so today his memory and example remain a unifying force for this new nation.
We will continue to follow the footsteps of this young man, born in a very simple heart, born of Lotuho. Everybody pray for him. Everybody want him to intercede currently for Southern Sudan, to find that his dreams must be achieved.
Father Saturnino used all of his gifts and ability to struggle and to fight in a hope-filled, sustained way. He represents really a hero and a model for the people here in the South. The role that a heroic figure can have in giving people courage, saying you don't have to be afraid. We have a hope that goes beyond the confines of this life. We don't have to be manipulated. We don't have to be terrorized. We don't have to be coerced. We can, with confidence, bear witness to Christ.